You come upon a mass emergency scene. A commercial building's roof has caved in. It's likely there are people inside. What do you do? After viewing this module, you'll know exactly what to do in order to keep yourself and others safe so that you can do the most good until the first responders arrive. Today, we'll be covering light search and rescue operations. The topics we'll be covering in this unit are safety during search and rescue operations. It's very important because the rescuer must put safety first. We'll also cover the simple cursory interior and exterior searches and the difference between the two, and we'll learn what is involved in conducting a rescue operation. Our objectives for this unit are to learn about the size-up requirements, what they are and how to identify them, learn about the most common search techniques, and we'll learn about how to use safe techniques for debris removal and for victim extrication, which means getting somebody out. We will also cover ways to protect the rescuers, because in any emergency, you are the most important person. Search and rescue consists of 3 separate operations. The first operation is the size up. When arriving at the scene, one must size up what we have and what we're going to need. We're going to use a 9-step continuum model, meaning after we go all the way through our model, we'll go back to the beginning and reevaluate again. One is constantly reevaluating because everything is continually changing. The second operation is going to be locating victims and documenting the location, which is a very important step. And the last operation is the rescue itself and extricating the victims. The first and foremost thing to be done is to decide whether or not to attempt to rescue victims. Your decision is based on 3 factors. The risk involved to the rescuer. Is it too dangerous for us to go in? Is the building unstable? Is the building on fire? There are a lot of factors that come into play, and you have to decide, can we get in and out safely? So that's the first factor. The second one is the greatest good for the greatest number. You have to say, what is the biggest bang for my buck? In regular terms, you just have to know what is the greatest good. If you have one person who's trapped and it's going to take you 2 hours to get them out, and you have 10 people that you can get out, you're going to have to go with the 10 people. You have to go with the most people. It's not an easy decision, but you have to pull those 10 people out. Get the most out possible, and then go back for the other one. The third factor is what resources and manpower are available. Remember, you can't do a lot of these things by yourself or with just 2 people, because remember, you're always working with a buddy system, 2 people. But you have to look at, can I get this person out by myself or with just the 2 of us? What else do I need? Do I need more people? Do I need more resources? Meaning maybe I need some pry bars or a fire extinguisher. I might need all kinds of different things. So what do I need to accomplish this task? The goal of search and rescue is to rescue the greatest number in the shortest amount of time. So you want to get the walking wounded out first. To do this, yell, "If you can hear my voice and walk, walk towards me." Then have the ones who are walking exit the location first. Rescue the lightly trapped victims or lightly injured victims next. If there is one who just can't walk and there are people who can help that person walk out, tell them to help. Use the rescuers to work with the injured or the trapped victims. You have to keep your team members safe. If they're injured, then they become part of the problem rather than part of the solution. A well-organized search and rescue depends on effective size-up and team safety and victim safety. Size up the situation, gather the facts. What resources do you have? What do you need? Are there enough team members to do the job? How big is it? What's the geographical area? What is the big picture? Is it safe to send people in to effect a rescue? Is the building just teetering, or has the building collapsed and there's so much debris that it must be cleared before the people can be rescued? Can this team remove the debris, or is it safe to remove the debris? Remember, you're not an expert. Even the experts use experts. For example, the urban search and rescue guys have structural specialists that go along with them to look at buildings and determine what can be pulled out and what can't or shouldn't be pulled out. What about the victim safety? If something has to be moved before the victims can be reached, will something fall and perhaps cause more injuries? Would they be safer left where they are until the experts arrive? These things have to be taken into consideration. It's a judgment call that has to be made. Remember, the Emergency Operation Manager size-up is a continual process. You have to gather the facts, evaluate what you have, consider the abilities of the team and how many members are available. Also, assess the damage and determine how extensive the damage. Designate a safe area where the evacuees can go once they are out of the building. Consider the probabilities of what might happen if nothing is done. Is another storm likely to develop? Another earthquake predicted? Assess your and the team's condition. Can the team perform the necessary tasks? If the decision is made to go ahead and effect a rescue, then establish priorities. What is to be done first and second and third? There must be a plan. The plan should consist of establishing a command post and establishing a treatment area or areas and establishing a safe area. Once you have established priorities, then make a decision on how to go about accomplishing those priorities. Take action, put the plan into action. Then evaluate progress. How are things going? And then start back over, gathering the facts, assessing the damage, are the little small fires put out, and so on, and just keep repeating the process. While you're gathering facts, find out what happened, what's expected. Is everyone evacuated from the building? Does the building have a check-in and check-out process? Is there a logbook? Reviewing the building's check-in, check-out sheets or logbook will help in determining who is in the building. Talk to people. Ask if somebody left the scene immediately or before you arrived. It is necessary to determine who was in the building when the incident occurred, as well as their location after the incident. Is the damage light, moderate, or heavy? It makes a difference, so take a good look and assess the damage to the best of your abilities. Let's take a look at some pictures to help you assess the level of damage. Light damage. This is a picture of the aftermath of a small earthquake showing superficial damage, broken windows, cracks and breaks, and small cracks in the wall surface, and minor damage to the interior contents. It's safe to enter and remain in there for the most part, but stay away from anything that's not attached. For example, don't stand where the man in the picture is, because if there is an aftershock, more debris could be coming down and result in injuries to anyone standing in that spot. Plus, objects overhead could come down at any time. Take those kind of things into consideration when entering a damaged area. Moderate damage. Visible signs of damage, decorative work damaged or fallen. You can see the porch on this building is a little shaky. Many visible cracks in walls, major damage to the interior contents. This building is still on the foundation, but it really isn't safe to enter. This is on the edge between safe and unsafe. You really want to look at this carefully. Listen for creaking, shifting. It's very easy for a damaged structure to let go without notice. Enter only to save lives and get out as fast as possible. And heavy damage. A partial collapse. You can see in this picture it's tilting, obvious structural instability. The building's off its foundation. This is a do not enter. You want to have people who really know what they're doing go in here. This takes shoring it up and doing some other very complicated maneuvers. This one is for the pros to handle. Step 3, consider the probabilities. How stable is the situation? Is the emergency still going on? Is it an earthquake? Is it a tornado? Is it a hurricane? Did the first part of the hurricane pass? Has the backside passed? Assess the situation. Is it stable? What else could go wrong? Could the rest of the storm knock down some power lines? Could there be more flooding? Could there be rain following the storm? And what else does it mean for search and rescue? How will rain, thunder, lightning, more wind affect search and rescue? What is the possibility of being able to send people in for search and rescue if the high winds and rain continue? Assess your situation. Is the situation safe enough to continue? Is it over or is it still active? What risks will the rescuers face? What rescuer resources are needed? What is needed and what is available? It might be necessary to send a couple of people out to gather up various items which might be needed, such as locate all the fire extinguishers possible and bring them back. Then locate pry bars, go find some hammers, whatever. And then start an equipment pool so resources are near at hand. Do you have some team members who are volunteer firefighters or police or doctors, nurses, maybe contractors? Do you have crowbars, pry bars, auto jacks? Do you have chainsaws? What other equipment is on hand or easily accessible? As stated earlier, make an equipment pool. Determine what should be done and in what order. Determine how to rescue the greatest number in the shortest amount of time. Remember, that's the key. Always begin by yelling, "Everybody who can hear my voice, come to me." Then decide how and where to begin. Is there a fire? And if so, should extinguishing that fire be first priority? Make a decision. This is always a tough one. Keep in mind the safety of your EOM members, life safety for victims, and others. And don't put them in a situation where there are downed electrical lines, for example. If there are electrical wires down and it's possible to shut the power off, do that. But look at life safety for the victims and others first, and then decide what to do. Protection of the environment is usually very low on the priority level. Life safety is number one, and then protection of property. Make sure the team members and evacuees are safe, and then determine what steps, if any, can be taken to protect the environment and property. Develop a plan of action. Focus operations on established priorities and decisions. The plan of action should be what priorities were set up and the decisions made concerning first priority, second priority, and so on. All team members should understand the plan and, ideally, have practiced the plan. Provide for documentation to give to the responsible agencies or the responding agencies. Remember, document, document, document. Have a scribe with you, somebody to write things down. Significant things, such as who's missing, where were they last seen, from what building is this report being made. Document how many deceased, how many wounded, and approximately how many are still trapped and where they're still trapped. By documenting all these things, when the first responders arrive, they will know exactly what they have to deal with, and they can establish their own priorities and plan of action. Also, this documentation should become part of your EOM records. Document events in chronological order and include statistics, dates, locations, and keep this record to provide proof or evidence that these tasks were performed. All of this might be necessary when seeking reimbursement from insurance companies or FEMA. Next, take action. Take action based on the plan developed earlier. And step 9, evaluate the process. Is what you are doing helping or is it not helping? Do you need to reevaluate? Do you need to change your priorities? Do you need a new plan? Monitor the plan's effectiveness and safety. Am I putting people in really shaky situations? Do I need to reevaluate that? Do I need to pull them back? Specific safety considerations. Make sure team safety is your primary concern. Remember, without your team, nobody gets rescued. So you want to brief them before they go out. Tell them to make sure they stay in pairs. Use the buddy system. The buddy system is the best way. That way, if something happens to you, there's somebody else to go run and get help. If you have radios, Murphy's Law states that as soon as you get someplace, the radios aren't going to work or something's going to happen to the radio. By using the buddy system, there's always somebody there to help you. Plus, a second person is another set of eyes that can look around to see if there's any potential danger. Be alert. Watch for possible hazards. There's always something hanging or getting ready to fall, or it's going to collapse and there are wires on the ground. And remember, wires on the ground are always hot. Until proven otherwise. An example is in California during a little light rainstorm, a driver slid off the road, hit a tree, which knocked down some power lines that dropped into a puddle of water. A good Samaritan stops, tries to help the person get out of the car, steps in the puddle, and is electrocuted. Another car comes by, the driver sees the person down on the ground, goes to help, steps in the puddle, same thing, she dies. Now you have 2 people that were killed while trying to help, but did not know the right thing to do. It's just evaluating what your situation is. It's also important to rotate the teams, change their job. Rotate the ones who have been doing the heavy lifting and let them perform less strenuous tasks for a period of time. And always use job-specific safety equipment. Here are some structural voids that you may run into. These are all dangerous, and this is where there may be injured people. The first illustration is the pancake void. The problem is, if it's pancaked once, it could pancake again. Next is the lean-to void. This is another place where there may be people. And the V void is created where the floors come down. Don't dig right into that. It depends on the situation. It depends on the overall condition of the building. This is something that will have to be assessed carefully before beginning to try to remove the floor or remove victims. Individual voids are spaces where victims might seek protection. These are bathtubs, underneath desks, or inside cabinets. People might crawl into anything, under an extra desk or inside a closet. Closets are big for kids especially, but a lot of people go into closets because they've heard that it's a safe thing. They've seen it on TV or they heard somebody tell them that it is. During hurricanes or tornadoes, a lot of people go into the bathrooms because the room is very small, built strong, and people jump into the bathtubs, and a good percentage survive that way. Use a single diagonal line as a search marking. This is the same search marking that the urban search and rescue teams use all over the United States. So upon entering, make this slash mark and enter the info in your documentation. When sending teams out, give them an identifier, Team 1, Team 2, Team 3, whatever designation. But do give an identifier so when assignments are made and they go out, they can be tracked. Note who is on each team, the names of every team member, and which team each has been assigned to. Also, note the time entered and exited. A construction crown is a good thing to use to make these marks. These are important because when the rescue teams come back or finally get there, they are identified. They'll remember what these marks are, and they'll know whether there's somebody in there or not. It will save them time. Upon leaving the area, complete the X and enter some more information. Make a note of the area searched and how many victims were found. Here is an example of the markings. There's the time and the date in and out. Now, if there's just a time in and no time out, what does that tell you? It means people are still in there, your rescue teams. So if they didn't write it there, make sure that they note their time out. Note how many victims found and the area searched in there. Here's a realistic example. 2/15 of 08, they went in at 14:30 hours, they came out at 15:14, and that's EOM Team 23. They searched the first and second floor, and the stairs to floor 3 were unsafe, so they couldn't go. That tells you that the third floor has not been searched. So it tells you that 2 people were moved to medical ops, they found 2 live. Let's say they found 2 deceased on the second floor, then they would have written 2 DOA, second floor. Also, write this information on a scratch pad that you take with you so that you can confirm and tell the person in charge. That way, the proper people can go back later and recover the bodies. Remember the search methodology. Call out to the victims. Can anyone hear me? If you can hear my voice, walk toward me. Let the walking wounded walk to you. They may even pick somebody else up and bring them out to you. Ask the victims who respond by walking out for more information about the building and about others who may be trapped. Ask if they know of anybody else still inside. What's the condition inside? Has the floor come down? Is there a lot of debris? Find out what they can tell you about the conditions. And remember, the victims might be in shock or confused when they come out. So begin by asking a couple of questions to make sure they're lucid enough to answer correctly. Search methodology is bottom up, top down, either one. Start at the top and work your way down, or start at the bottom and work up. That's on a multi-story building. In any search, begin with a left or right wall search. Even on a single floor, begin with a left or right search. That way you've always got a hand on the wall. If you don't keep a hand on a wall, you'll get disoriented, especially if it's dark and you don't have a flashlight. Plus, you can use your whole body. You put your hand on the wall and you stretch your foot out, and it will help you keep your orientation. You may hear a call as you're searching, and so stop every once in a while so you can hear if somebody's calling you or making a banging noise or trying to signal for help. Listen for tapping, movement, or voices. A person can yell for only a short period of time and then the voice goes, especially when under stress or in a dusty and contaminated area. So listen for tapping or any noise. Triangulation allows rescuers, and quite a few people are needed to do this, to get around an area, and then they call out and the person calls back, and you hear by sound, you start triangulating pretty much where the person is. It's one of the hardest ones to get right. Keep records of rescue victims and those who remain trapped or dead. If they're really trapped, you may need professional rescuers, or you may need more people to get them out. Leave the dead in place, or if you can, move them out to a morgue area. And report that information to emergency services personnel when they arrive. If it's an area search, you want to set up a grid search. Set the distance between the searchers according to visibility and debris. This is for large area searches. Do an overlap pattern. Search as straight as you can, pick a point, and get about 10 feet apart, maybe 20 feet apart. It depends on the conditions. Mark the areas that you have searched. It is very important to have a plan for a grid search. Don't just start running around and looking for victims. Make a plan. To set up the grid search, set the distances, overlap the patterns, and you can see the lines. Do a grid pattern. Rescue operations. Remove objects and debris to free the victims and create a safe rescue environment. You want to be able to move stuff, but you have to be careful. Watch what you're doing. If you're moving one thing and something else moves, remember it could fall down. You could cause more harm to the victim. So be careful when you're removing objects or debris. Also, when you start lifting things, it's a fulcrum. It may put more pressure on somebody. So you may have to shore up one area to be able to lift another area and free a victim. Or even to create a safe environment to rescue people, you may have to move some debris to be able to get to people. Then triage the victims. Find out who is most injured and deal with it. And move the victims to a safe area and then remove some of the debris if you can to get to more victims. To create a safe environment, maintaining rescuer safety is number one. Triage in lightly and moderately damaged buildings. Take a look inside. Can it be used? Is it very lightly damaged? Can this be used for sheltering the victims, something out of the weather? You never know when an emergency is going to happen. Is it going to be 105 and humid, or is it going to be 10 below? Each one creates its own little monsters that must be dealt with. And you want to evacuate victims as quickly as possible. Be cautious, minimize risks, and know your limitations. You really need to know your limitations. If you know you can't pick up something really heavy, you want to tell the person in charge so they know about it, and they might give you a different job. Follow safety procedures. Wear a helmet, wear gloves, wear shoes that aren't flip-flops, sandals, high heels, or something like that. Wear sturdy work boots or shoes if you have them. Remove debris by leveraging and cribbing. Leveraging is lifting up. Cribbing is putting material underneath to keep it from coming back down. Proper lifting means you keep your back straight, bend your knees, keep the load close to your body, and push up with your legs. The other key is if you're lifting something heavy and you're squatted down like that, look up at the ceiling, take your head and look up, chin and everything. If you look up like that, you'll automatically keep your back straight. We're talking about leveraging and cribbing. You can use a fulcrum and a piece of wood for heavy lifting. It can be performed tandemly as long as you've got people to put cribbing underneath there. And it can help extricate victims and to lift heavy objects. You can use a pry bar, 4x4s, 2x4s, whatever, depending on the weight of what you're doing. Use a piece of wood as a fulcrum, which you can see in that picture. Cribbing, you can use various materials. Bricks, pieces of wood stacked up so that when you lift, you put those underneath so that they don't come back down on top of the person, or you lose your grip and it comes down on the person. The two types of removal are self-removal or assist and lift and drags. In self-removal, they can crawl out by themselves. If you have to lift or drag somebody out, make sure their head is stabilized. If there's a back injury, try to keep them as inline as possible. You might want to pull them right onto a backboard or a piece of plywood or maybe a door, something to keep them stable. Which extrication method are you going to use? You'll need to consider the general stability of the immediate environment, how many people you have to work with, how many potential victims. Is it raining, muddy, hot and humid? How many people will be needed to do this job? What is the condition of the victims? Are they going to make it or not? You may not know that, but are they really stuck in there? Will it require more people and a long period of time to get them out? Do you have the resources to do that? It's a hard thing to be unable to get to somebody. Here are some of the carries that you can do. This is called the pack strap carry. Putting somebody over your back, I would suggest that you hopefully get some big strapping person that can do this. Remember to bend your knees and grab them, but you also have to pick them up. If they're on the ground, it's going to be a lot harder. This is for somebody who doesn't weigh a whole lot and is standing already and just needs help. This is the two-person carry, and this is a good one. But the better version is the guy who's carrying his legs turns around and is walking forward, and that way nobody's walking backwards. Anytime you walk backwards, you have a chance to trip and fall. This is also really hard on your back as a rescuer. This one is one of the best. Put somebody in a chair and then carry it. Again, if you can, don't walk backwards. Of course, the best way to move a person in a chair is by using an office chair, one with wheels. And this is the blanket carry. This is a good way to move people, especially if you've got somebody that's possibly injured or may have a back injury. You really need a sturdy blanket to do this because some blankets are not thick enough nor sturdy enough to carry the weight of an adult. If you can see through the blanket when you hold it up to the sun, that's probably not a good blanket to use for this carry, but it may be the only thing you have, so you just have to be careful. Log rolling a patient is a good method to move a person onto a backboard. Have one person hold the head all the way to the shoulders to keep it in line with the back. And on his count, everybody rolls towards their knees, and then somebody slides in a backboard or a door or some flat surface and then roll them back, and you can take the person wherever they need to go. That's called log rolling. This technique should be used if there's a suspected or acknowledged back injury. In summary, you should know how to decide whether to attempt to rescue. We covered objectives of exterior and interior search and rescue, how to perform search and rescues, how to conduct a size up, the 9-step. We talked about building markings, how to do the X, how to write time in, time out, who you found, what you searched. And lastly, rescue functions and how to remove debris by fulcrums and cribbing. Lastly, how to extricate a victim and how to get them out using different carries. You've learned quite a bit of information in this module. So let's remember to document, continually size up, take care of your workers, and most importantly, take care of yourself.